The engine cuts off. The driveway is dark. You've just had a great night out. Maybe someone praised your work at dinner, and you are quietly pleased. Then the temperature in the car drops. For the next 30 minutes, you sit trapped in the passenger seat while the person next to you delivers a surgical, exhausting inventory of everything you supposedly did wrong that evening. How you steered the conversation, how long you talked, the exact look on your face. Your immediate instinct is to panic and play defense. You frantically explain your tone of voice. You backtrack on your intentions. You swear you weren't trying to show off or overshadow anyone. None of this works. Arguing your case in this moment is like trying to fight with smoke while the fire that actually made it burns safely out of reach behind a locked door. The confusion happens because human memory is wired to look for a rational cause right next to a negative reaction.
We assume the spark must live somewhere in the exact conversation we are currently having. You end up exhausting yourself trying to reverse engineer a reason for an attack that actually had no logical trigger in anything you said or wore or did. To find the real cause, we have to stop the clock and rewind to the exact 4 seconds before the coldness even started. What happened in that tiny window is the true subject. The actual psychological event that ruined the night occurred completely silently in that gap, well before anyone spoke a single word. Step entirely outside of the spoken argument. Once we investigate the mechanics of this silent gap and name what fires inside it, you will never watch one of these flips the same way again. The input they received right before the gap was not an insult. It was a moment of personal success for you. It is usually something completely ordinary, receiving a compliment from a stranger. Making a mutual friend laughed really hard at your joke. Experiencing a win at your job. This animated scale illustrates how a fragile psychological structure built on grandiosity interprets your success. Underneath that grandiosity is a deep, easily reached inadequacy. When you shine, this internal scale immediately tilts. Your small win does not register to them as shared joy. It triggers a stark warning. It registers as a status threat, a sudden downward drop in a comparison they never actually stopped running. To a mind that relies entirely on being the brightest thing in the room to survive, another person's light is perceived as an existential threat. That sudden downward tilt hits a hidden core wound, resulting in a profound, sudden spike of deep shame. Most people can feel a flush of shame, sit with it for a second, and let it pass. This specific personality structure cannot hold that feeling for even a single breath. It is completely intolerable. Under this acute emotional injury, the reflecting, rational part of their brain effectively goes offline. This flowchart shows what takes over instead. A strict mechanical process, the convert and expel reflex, automatically kicks in to eliminate the unbearable feeling by forcing it outward. The shame is converted into one of 4 exhaust vents. It flips outward as rage. It sharpens into quiet contempt to shrink you down. It turns into a sudden, solid wall of withdrawal, or it curdles into a logged plan for later revenge. Researchers refer to this specific contempt as envy's antidote. The abuser's mind deliberately unplugs its emotional investment, rendering you totally worthless in their eyes. Stripping you of your worth is how they switch the envy off. By the time time unfreezes and words are spoken in that driveway, the shame is entirely gone. The conversion sealed it shut behind a locked door, and you only see the weaponized byproduct. Living next to this psychological machine takes a heavy toll over the years. You slowly compress yourself down. You learn a quiet, terrible arithmetic. You realize that the bigger your moment of shine, the sharper the cold flip that inevitably follows. So you start threat management. You pre-shrink yourself. You downplay your own promotions. You suppress your laughter. You learn to be a little more gray and muted just to avoid tripping the wire. The insidious damage is that this constant anticipation eventually colonizes the good days too. You brace yourself against the door until there is no clean, uncomplicated joy left anywhere. You sacrifice your entire authentic self to buy a temporary, quiet peace. But a peace bought that way isn't real. It is just the flip succeeding so completely it no longer even has to happen. The cold flip was never a judgment on your character. The abuser was simply using you as emotional medicine. On the nights when you shine, you are treated as the poison. and by being devalued, you are forced to act as their cure. The warm, idealizing version of them and the cold, punishing version are not two different people. They are the exact same psychological machine running in two different gears, dictated entirely by their own internal weather. The next time the temperature inexplicably drops, you have to actively resist the old reflex to scan your own behavior for a flaw. Look at the 4 seconds before and ask yourself who you were shining toward. Notice what that does to the guilt you carry. It has nowhere to land. Your only actual offense was being enough on your own.